Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Okay.
Just want to check if it's because I have to.
You can use this. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare
Just put it on the
Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Well, it's got to go like this. Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna. It's good enough. Not perfect, but it's good enough. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. So we're in South Africa where we decided to broadcast outside because we couldn't get a good signal on the wireless modem. And I don't know how long the gigabytes are going to last on this. I have a feeling we're going to use them all up very quickly. Anyway, I can't even see if things are working properly. But anyway, we'll try our best. So, we have two devotees here. They're going to ask me questions, and I'm going to answer them. And then, if you have any questions, you can also ask. How's that? First start. And then all the noise you hear in the back are all the devotees talking about Krishna's pastimes. Right? So Bhakti Rasa is going to ask a question. She has many questions. What's your question?
Any question?
No, any question about anything. Well, you already asked them all this morning. You ran out of questions?
But I'm sure I'm listening.
I can ask questions from the class. Okay, so we did a workshop on vows, and I think at one point, maybe it was last year this time, we did a workshop on vows. In another temple, and I think I spoke about it a little bit. But every time you do a workshop, things are different. You get different realizations. So one of the things we read today is that when you commit to Krishna consciousness, Krishna gives you power. And of course, you want to make sure you can commit. That's the point. But this question kept coming up. How do you become determined to follow your vows? And Prabhupada said that once you commit, you can't ask that question. That determination, that will come from Krishna once you commit. So that actually you don't have to worry about it. You commit, you said, I've made these vows, I'm committed to them. And then Krishna will give you the strength. So Prabhupada said something quite amazing. He said, how will you get, when the devotee said, how will you get the strength then to follow your vows, Prabhupada said, he said, That's Krishna's business, it's not your business. So, we would think, no, it must be my business how to get this determination. He said, no, that's Krishna's business. Your only business is to commit to the vow. And then Prabhupada said, by committing and following, your determination will go. So there's not a process of building determination to follow once you commit. Can you ask them to go do that somewhere else? The boys are throwing things at the wall and I'm getting distracted. Can you go around the other side and do it? No problem. So what we understand is that our sense of commitment is all that we need for Krishna to give us empowerment. It's interesting, right? And Krishna's always directing us. He's directing us. So we have to tell him which way to direct us. And according to what we tell him, he directs us, either to him or to Maya. So, then Prabhupada said something else which is very heavy. I think we've talked about this before. He said that well, I should preface it by saying there are several places in Prabhupada's books where qualities of human beings are described. And normally we think the quality of a human being is human birth. But that's not the qualification of human beings. So he gives qualifications. Bhishma Dev gives the qualifications of human being when he speaks to Yudhisthira. And herein, Prabhupada, in this discussion about vows, he gave the qualification of a human being. That a human being, when he commits, he follows through. He makes a promise and he follows through. That's a human being. And an animal can't do that. So Prabhupada said, therefore, if you make a vow and you don't follow it, then you're not human. So, for us, we might consider our initiation vows to be a very big thing, and I don't want to underestimate the seriousness of it. But at the same time, Prabhupada said, it's just that you promise and then you do it, and that's human life. And so we were talking about something that I don't think everyone always thinks about when they talk about vows, and that is that you can get sidetracked when you're trying to follow your vow by noting how difficult the vow is, and even getting an excuse not to follow it, because you say, well, I took the vow, so the problem is what I have to do. But on a psychological level, the problem is commitment to whatever you have to do. It's not about the difficulty, it's about the commitment. And this was the point Prabhupada was making. If you commit, then you don't focus on why it's difficult to commit, but you focus on the fact that you committed. And he said the same thing about marriage. It will get difficult if you're not married and you're going to get married. There'll be challenges that you're going to have that you don't have now, and sometimes they can get very difficult. And in those situations, often it happened that devotees would write Prabhupada and they'd want to give up their wedding vows. And so then Prabhupada focused on the fact that you made the vow, not the obstacle, not the difficulty, but the vow. And those who wrote him letters were focused on the difficulty. In other words, here's the difficulty, and therefore this is why I can't do it. And Prabhupada came back. The difficulty is not the actual consideration or the problem. The problem is that you're not committed. So we tend to look at reasons to not commit based around the difficulty of what we vowed to do, and Prabhupada looked at the reason as that we're not committed, not the difficulty of the commitment. So whenever anyone tried to give a rationale for not committing, either it's difficult, I'm weak, I didn't know what I was doing or whatever. And Prabhupada would say that, basically he would say that don't try to focus on why you can't follow it, but focus on why you can. So in other words, whoa, the battery's low. That means we need to plug in the computer and then plug this into the computer so it'll charge. Or plug the adapter straight. You get the adapter and plug the adapter in there. That also, yeah. And that. This. And then the other big adapter, the big white one. And this. Ah! And then we're going to plug this into the phone, which now means we have to move everything. Okay, so now, hold on everyone. It's time for some drama. Okay, now, you're going to get a real close-up of me. Oh boy, I don't know. I'm going to have to move this, move it over. Oh, that's better actually. Well, okay. Is it going to fall over? Okay. Yeah, okay, that's good. So, yeah, okay. Hopefully it's charging. Yeah. So, the Prabhupada's point was that once you commit to something, then you just focus on, not even focus on keeping the commitment, but once you commit, there should be this consciousness that there's no question of doing anything else because I've committed. And as I was saying, often there's the tendency to focus on the reasons I can't commit, or I can't keep the vow. Now we discussed that in some cases keeping a vow could actually be bad for you. That situations change. And that's rare, but if that is the case, like sometimes in a marriage becomes unhealthy or toxic or even physically dangerous to be married to this person. So in that case, you follow the principle that you do what's advantageous for your Krishna consciousness. So on occasion like that, it might be advantageous for your Krishna consciousness to break your vow, to give it up because the situation is so disturbing that you can't follow it. Or like maybe you vowed to do some service, but it comes to the point where it's really impossible circumstantially to do that service, or it would disturb your Krishna consciousness so much that you would be pretty useless. And so in that case you would give up your vow. So but when Prabhupada was talking about vows, generally he was talking about marriage vows and particularly initiation vows. And so his idea was that if you can't commit, don't make the vow. So then it's not a problem. Let's say you're trying to follow and you can't follow, there's no problem because you didn't commit, and you're not going to be faulted, right? There's no fault, but once you say, this is what I'm going to do, I promise, before the deities, before the fire, which is Vishnu, before the Vaishnavas, then Prabhupada's point was, why did you promise if you weren't going to do it? Of course, when you promised, you're thinking you were going to do it, but his point was, when you made that promise, that meant this is it, there's nothing else. So we had discussed in the workshop that oftentimes when we commit, we don't realize that maybe we're not committing fully. We're committing partially, and if we don't commit fully, then we may give up that commitment later. So Prabhupada's point was, you commit 100%. You say, I'm going to do it, that's it. You do it. And then we had discussed also that sometimes in our society, you might promise someone you're going to do something and you don't. You promise to be time and you're late and like that. So that's obviously not the same as a vow, but there's a tendency for that. And so we want to be conscious of that. But this idea, if I say it, then I do it, and I do it the way I say it. As opposed to, if I say it, sometimes I forget. So you have to remind me. I'm sorry. We always have that as a backup. I'm sorry. And I'm sorry will be taken often as an excuse. And you think if you say you're sorry, you can patch up the mess. And other people don't think that way. You say, I'm sorry, they might think, oh yeah, you don't care, that's an excuse. So, if a devotee ever made a mistake, then they were sorry for it. Prabhupada's question would be, what are you going to do now? So there's always that. Rectification meant a new action. What are you going to do now that you made a mistake? Okay? Sometimes Krishna describes in the Gita that there's accidental fall down due to weakness, and then the devotee regrets that. Apichat suduracharo. Devotee regrets it, and so he gets up with greater determination to go forward. And so many times when devotees had difficulty, and Prabhupada would say, okay, just don't do it again. Don't make that same mistake again. And he was ready to forgive and move forward. So we have to have that same attitude ourselves, that sometimes, even though we're determined and committed, sometimes due to weakness we may slip. And when we slip, then the consciousness is okay, let's get up and go forward. Right? That's it. All right. So whatever. I'm weak, maybe I'm stupid, maybe I didn't know how to follow the vows, maybe circumstantially the environment wasn't good. So now, let's go forward. Let's do it. And we had discussed that's Sattva-guna. Sattva-guna is always forward. And Tamaguna is always backward. It's always going negative. Sattva-guna is always going positive. Okay, so that was a problem. Okay, let's rectify it and move forward. Tamaguna is that was a problem, we're finished. What's the use of going forward? That's Tamaguna, right? Why try? I failed, why try? Or Tamaguna is I failed, therefore that means I'm useless. So I'm just a failure. I can't do anything right. So there's a spiritual principle of remorse. Remorse is meant to be something positive. Okay, I did something wrong. So, all right. Now let's do it right. There's a remorse. And to say I'm sorry doesn't mean I'm remorseful. It just could be a good excuse. I'm sorry, I'm sincerely sorry. But the remorse would be to rectify it. So there's a saying, the best apology is to do the right thing in the future. So rather than say, I'm sorry, okay, you're going to do it again. I'm sorry could mean you'll do it again. Right? And every time you mess up, you say, I'm sorry. So that doesn't work. Okay. So commitment is empowering because it gives you the right psychology to follow through on what you commit to. Because the right psychology is I'm going to do it, and that's it. Nothing else is going to happen. And then it allows Krishna to empower you. He'll give you the strength. That if you commit, you will get the strength. That's the process of Krishna consciousness. And that's why Prabhupada initiated people who were off the street practicing Krishna consciousness for a few months, 3 months, 2 months, 1 week, 6 months. And he felt if they were committed to the process, they would be successful, even though they weren't very spiritually advanced. Even though they were full of material contamination, even though they were full of material desires, if they said, okay, I'm going to do this, then Prabhupada felt the process was powerful enough, and that's all they needed. That's it. Right? So So that means initiation is a big thing, because it's a turning point. Because when you initiate, then you're like, you're getting to this point saying, okay, material life is finished. I'm putting that behind me, and now I'm turning my life over to Guru and Krishna. And I'm not going to be independent anymore. I'm going to do what they say. And that's probably the first time in like 10 zillion years that you said, I'm not going to be independent. Right? So it's kind of a monumental thing when you take initiation, because at that point you're saying, okay, now I have a guru who's going to direct me, and I'm not going to decide. Right? So that's pretty big. Right? And so nobody should take initiation lightly, because you're formalizing your declaration to no longer be independent of Krishna. You're formalizing your surrender. Now I will do what Krishna wants. And just like in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna did the same thing. It's just he kind of did it out of desperation, because he couldn't figure out what to do, and he couldn't relieve himself of his misery, so he just said, okay, Krishna, I can't do it myself. So that's what it means to take initiation. To take a guru means I can't do it myself. I tried, it didn't work, I'm not happy, I'm not enlightened, I don't know the truth, so you tell me. Right? And at that point you officially say, okay, now I'm not independent anymore. My independence is... So Prabhupada would point out, if you want to be independent, you don't need a guru. Right? Why do you need a guru if you want to do whatever you want? If you don't want to be directed by him or Shastra, then you can choose to do that, but then you don't need a guru as a fashion. Oh, everybody's got a guru, I'll get one also. Everybody's got this guru, he looks like... That's prestige if I'm his disciple. I can tell people I'm his disciple. Oh, okay. I'll take initiation from him. And get a little button, everyone will see. So that's not the idea. So we are weak. That's understood. We are weak. That's our nature. We're weak. And from time to time, we're going to be weak. And it's that commitment that protects you when you're weak from falling in the ditch. Right? Okay, I feel like doing this, but I'm not going to because I committed to do that. That's what protects you when you're weak. So when Prabhupada was told that some devotees fall because they're weak, so he didn't accept that as an excuse, because he's saying, even if you're weak, if you're committed, you won't give in to the weakness. Okay, I'd like to do that, but I've committed. Right? Just like you can commit to a friend to do something today, but you want to go to the temple, but you're already committed. So even though you want to go to the temple, you keep your commitment to the friend. So that's Prabhupada's point. It's weakness is more or less a natural condition in the material world. That's understood. And so to think that once I commit, automatically I won't have any problems, that's only true if your commitment is 100%. But it doesn't mean you won't have problems. It means that commitment will protect you from falling when you have problems. But you will have problems, because as a conditioned soul, Maya is going to try to mess around with you. She's going to try to put desires in your heart and mind to force you or pull you away from Krishna. So a devotee can think, all right, but I committed to my Guru and Krishna, so I'm protected. So Maya me tat tarantite, I can cross over Maya. A devotee, and you might think, well, if you say that, that means you're proud. But you're saying it because it's true, not because you're proud. Like sometimes Prabhupada would say people who are like this are asses. They're like asses. They work like asses. They're karmis. They work like asses. Or these jnanis who think this way, they're fools. And so Prabhupada said, so how can I say that? Because those are strong words. He said, I can say it because Krishna said it. Right? He said, how is it that I have the right to call this person a fool? Only because Krishna described him as a fool. And therefore I can do that. So how could I be so audacious to say, I can defeat Maya, or I could not be infected by Maya or attacked by Maya? Because Krishna says that. So if you do this, you won't fall into Maya. So if I commit, then I know my commitment is my protection. Every day I know if I commit to 16 good rounds, regular principles, to my service, I know I'll be protected. That we have that faith. Right? Or we don't have the faith, we should. Just know that, So that's the most fundamental thing. To be committed to what I vow to do, my 16 rounds or how many rounds, my regular principles, whatever else I've committed to, that's fundamental. That's where it starts. Right? That's it. That's what it means to be serious about Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, it's like, I'll check it out, let's see how it goes. That's, okay, that may be there for some people. We'll see how we like it. Well, of course, that's how you are in the beginning. We'll see how we like it. But at a certain point, you have to evolve beyond, we'll see how we like it, we'll see how it goes. Right? So, yes. See, Prabhupada has told us that the nature of the material world and material energy is such that if you're kind of like, we'll see how it goes, we can already tell you how it's going to go. It's not going to go well. Because you don't pick a fight with someone stronger than you. Right? Or you don't maybe you can pick a fight with someone stronger than you if you got a gun or a knife. But if you don't pick a fight. So you can't challenge Maya unless you have the ammunition and the weapons. So that's the process of Krishna consciousness. It's the ammunition and the weapons. Right? But if it's like, well, I want to take Krishna consciousness and we're going to see how it goes, try this, try that, chant a few rounds, not really into reading, so I won't really study the books, I'll offer prasadam when I can, if I have time. It's not going to work because it's a science. And sometimes devotees say, well, I'm trying to be Krishna conscious, but it's not working. But I would say the first place to look is, are you actually practicing Krishna consciousness properly? Because in theory, if you practice it properly, it will work. Right? Because that's the first place to look. Krishna consciousness doesn't work for me. Well, did you have the right attitude? Did you give up your independence? Were you following for the right reasons? Were you reading Prabhupada's books every day? Okay. Then if you say, I've done that and it doesn't work, it's okay. This lifetime, maybe it's not going to work for you. There's some resistance there. But generally, if you do that, it'll work. Even I've seen people who resisted Krishna consciousness, but their husbands or wives became devotees, so they followed and they became Krishna conscious because they followed the process. Even they weren't so into it in the beginning. So, that's the power of the process. There could be even some resistance, but the process could purify that resistance. The mentality may not be correct, and the process can correct it. You may have personal agendas, personal motives, but by staying in the process, then you can correct it. I mean, not you correct it, it corrects you. You chant. Okay, just chant. Maybe it's not pure, but you chant and you see what happens. You chant, and then the desire comes to be pure. That will come. So that's the idea. There's a power in the process. I think a lot of devotees neglect the process. They don't understand how important the process, the Vaidhi sadhana, is. The regulation, the practices, daily, every day, and how much we depend on those practices to awaken our Krishna consciousness. Right? It's like I can't just be Krishna conscious because I believe in Prabhupada or I have faith in Krishna. It has to be executed. And that's where the commitment comes in, because without the commitment, the execution won't be steady. It'll be according to how I feel, or when the situation's right, then I do it. When it's not right, I don't do it. So that's not good. Right? You can relate to that? Yeah. So the other thing we discussed, which was very powerful, was that if you make a vow, then you have to create an environment in your life which supports your ability to follow that vow. So even if you make a vow and you commit, I would say if you don't have a proper environment in your life which aligns or supports your ability to follow the vow, then you're not completely committed. Because if you were completely committed, you wouldn't allow yourself to be in a situation which would undermine your ability to follow the vow. Right? So that we have to see commitment, not that internally in my heart I've committed, but we have to see, does that reflect in what your life looks like? So a person who's committed to good rounds doesn't go to bed at 1 o'clock at night and get up at 8 and then go to work. Right? So if you say you're committed, then it should reflect in your actions. And if your actions don't reflect it, then that gives you some kind of barometer to adjust. Okay, I must not be committed, because if I were, I wouldn't have done this, right? Or I wouldn't be thinking like this. I wouldn't be meditating on